Kim Tae-ho wiped the grease from his hands with a dirty rag and stared at the broken plasma torch on his workbench. The tool had been his father's, then his grandfather's before that. Now it was just another piece of junk in his failing repair shop on level 47 of Seoul Station. The space station hummed around him with the sound of 1,000 machines working day and night. But down here in the lower levels, the hum sounded tired. Everything was tired, including Tae-ho himself. He looked at the unpaid bills scattered across his desk. Rent for the shop, power for the lights, food for himself. The numbers were all red, which meant he owed money he did not have. At 26 years old, Tae-ho was already failing at the only thing he knew how to do. A soft chime from his door made him look up. A tall woman in a clean gray suit stood in his doorway. She looked very out of place in his dirty shop. "Are you Kim Tae-ho?" she asked in a formal voice. "Yes, that's me." "Do you need something fixed?" Tae-ho asked, hoping for work. "I am lawyer Park from the station legal office. I have news about your uncle Pak Dong-soo." Tae-ho frowned. He had not spoken to Uncle Dong-soo in over 10 years. The man had been a trader who dealt with aliens from the outer rim. Most people said he was trouble, but Tae-ho's mother had always insisted he was family. "What about him?" Tae-ho asked. "He died 3 weeks ago on Titan 7, a trading accident," they said. "But before he died, he made a will. He left everything to you." Tae-ho's mouth fell open. "Everything? But we barely knew each other. Apparently you were his only living relative. Here are the papers." She handed him a datapad. "His property is in storage bay 94 on level 52. You have 48 hours to claim it or it goes to the station authorities." After the lawyer left, Tae-ho sat in his chair and stared at the datapad. Uncle Dong-soo had always seemed like a man with secrets. What kind of inheritance could a shady alien trader leave behind? The next morning, Tae-ho took the lift up to level 52. The storage area was cleaner than the lower levels, but still smelled like oil and recycled air. Bay 94 was at the end of a long corridor. When Tae-ho opened the heavy door, he found exactly what he expected. Boxes of alien machine parts, broken ship engines, piles of metal scraps that might be worth something to the right buyer. It was a trader's collection, gathered over many years. But then he heard something that made his blood freeze. A low rumbling growl came from the back of the storage bay. It sounded like an angry engine, but deeper, more alive. Tae-ho grabbed a plasma cutter from one of the boxes and moved slowly toward the sound. Behind a wall of stacked containers, he found something that made him step backward in shock. A creature the size of a small shuttle was chained to the wall. It looked like the dragons from old Earth stories, but wrong in every way. Its scales were dark metal instead of skin. Multiple eyes, each the size of Tae-ho's head, glowed red in the dim light. Strange tubes and wires were attached to its body, connecting to machines that beeped quietly. The creature saw him and pulled against its chains. The metal groaned but held. Its many eyes focused on Tae-ho with what looked like pure hatred. "What are you?" Tae-ho whispered. The creature just stared at him and made that terrible growling sound again. Tae-ho found a data slate next to the machines. His uncle's handwriting covered the screen in messy notes. Most of it made no sense, but one line was clear. "Vex bought from Kepler Station traders. Very old, very angry, worth fortune if I can figure out what it does." At the bottom of the notes, there was a newer entry. "If something happens to me, nephew must take care of. Vex cannot sell or abandon. Is in the will." Tae-ho looked back at the creature called Vex. The thing was huge, ugly, and clearly dangerous. Its breath came out in clouds of steam. Some of its metal scales were cracked and bleeding a strange blue fluid. "This is insane," Tae-ho said to himself. "I can't keep a monster." But as he read through more of his uncle's notes, the situation became clear. The inheritance came with conditions. If Tae-ho wanted the money, the ship parts, and everything else, he had to accept responsibility for Vex. If he refused, everything would go to the station authorities and be sold at auction. Tae-ho calculated quickly in his head. Even if he sold half the items in this storage bay, he would have enough money to pay his debts and keep his shop running for years. But the price was taking care of this angry alien creature. He walked closer to Vex, staying just out of reach of the chains. The creature's eyes followed his every movement. "Listen," Tae-ho said, feeling foolish for talking to it. "I don't know what you are or what my uncle did to you, but it looks like we're stuck together now." Vex made a sound that might have been a laugh, but it sounded more like a threat. 3 hours later, station security helped Tae-ho move Vex to his shop on level 47. The creature barely fit through the door and Tae-ho had to clear out half his workspace to make room for it. The security chief, Officer Nam, shook his head as he watched the transfer. "You sure about this, Kim? That thing looks dangerous, and it smells terrible." Tae-ho looked at Vex, who was now chained in the corner of his shop, glaring at everything with obvious disgust. "I'm not sure about anything," Tae-ho admitted, "but I need the money." After everyone left, Tae-ho stood alone in his shop with his new companion. Vex had not moved or made a sound since arriving. It just watched Tae-ho with those multiple red eyes. "Well," Tae-ho said, trying to sound confident, "I guess this is home now, for both of us." Vex responded by turning all of its eyes away from him, as if Tae-ho was not worth looking at. Taeho sighed and went back to work on his broken plasma torch. He had inherited a fortune, but he was starting to think the price might be too high. The creature in his shop was clearly miserable, and Taeho had no idea how to take care of it, but he was stuck now. For better or worse, he and Vex were partners, even if neither of them wanted to be. 3 months had passed since Vex arrived in Taeho's shop, and nothing had improved. If anything, things had gotten worse. Taeho woke up every morning to find something broken. Yesterday it was his favorite wrench, snapped in half. The day before, Vex had somehow knocked over an entire shelf of spare parts while still chained in the corner. The creature seemed to take pleasure in making Taeho's life difficult. "Good morning to you too," Taeho said as he swept up the latest mess. Vex had managed to reach a box of delicate circuit boards during the night. Now they were scattered across the floor like expensive confetti. Vex watched him clean with what looked like satisfaction in its multiple red eyes. The creature had not spoken since that first day, though Taeho was certain it understood every word he said. The worst part was how Vex scared away customers. Mrs. Chen had been bringing her food processor to Taeho for years, but one look at the metal dragon in the corner and she had run away screaming. Word spread quickly through the lower levels of the station. Kim Taeho's repair shop was now home to a monster. "You know," Taeho said as he worked on a broken navigation computer, "I could really use some help here instead of more problems." Vex made a snorting sound that Taeho had learned meant the creature found him annoying. The business was terrible. Taeho had sold most of his uncle's collection to pay for food for both of them. Vex ate massive amounts of protein paste and synthetic meat, which cost more than Taeho's own meals. The creature's biomechanical parts also needed special fluids that were expensive and hard to find, but today felt different. A Kalan trader named Pilot Core had brought in a damaged drive core from his ship. It was complex alien technology that most human mechanics could not handle, but Taeho needed the work desperately. "The quantum resonance is completely broken," Pilot Core explained in his clicking voice. "My ship cannot jump to hyperspace without it." Taeho nodded and pretended to understand. He had worked on Kalan technology before, but never anything this advanced. The drive core was covered in symbols he could not read and had connections that made no sense to him. For 2 hours, Taeho studied the device. He tried different approaches, checked his technical manuals, and even searched the station's computer database. Nothing worked. The core remained dead, and he was running out of ideas. "This is hopeless," he said, putting down his tools. That was when Vex made a different sound. Not the usual growl or snort, but something that sounded almost like clearing his throat. Taeho looked over at the creature. Vex was staring directly at the drive core with interest instead of boredom. "What?" Taeho asked. "Do you know something about this?" Vex tilted his massive head toward the left side of the device. Then he made a low rumbling sound and moved his head toward the right side. "You want me to switch these connections?" Taeho asked, pointing to the spots Vex had indicated. Vex nodded once. Slowly, Taeho was so surprised that he almost dropped his tools. The creature had never shown interest in his work before, and it had certainly never tried to help. "Okay," Taeho said carefully, "let's try it your way." He switched the connections exactly as Vex had suggested. The drive core hummed to life immediately, glowing with the soft blue light that meant it was working properly. Pilot Core was amazed. "How did you know to do that? Most human mechanics would never think to reverse the quantum flow." Taeho looked at Vex, who had turned away as if nothing had happened. "Lucky guess," he said. After Pilot Core paid and left, Taeho sat down next to Vex's chains. "So you do know about technology," he said. "Why didn't you help before?" Vex looked at him with those red eyes for a long moment. Then, in a voice like grinding metal, he spoke his first words in 3 months. "You never asked." Taeho felt his mouth fall open. "You can talk. I mean, I knew you could talk, but you never ... Talking is effort. You seemed stupid. Why waste effort on stupid human?" The words stung, but Taeho was too excited to care. "I'm not stupid. I just don't know alien technology as well as you do." Obviously, Vex said with what might have been sarcasm. Over the next few weeks, their relationship changed slowly. Vex began offering advice when Taeho worked on difficult repairs. His knowledge was incredible. He understood technology from dozens of different alien species, could spot problems that would take Taeho hours to find, and knew shortcuts that made repairs much faster. But Vex was still difficult to work with. He complained constantly about Taeho's methods, called him slow and clumsy, and never missed a chance to point out his mistakes. "Wrong tool," Vex would growl. "You are using wrong tool for that connection." "Then tell me which tool to use," Taeho would reply, frustrated. "Figure it out yourself. I am not your teacher." Despite the constant criticism, word began to spread that Kim Taeho's repair shop could fix things that other mechanics could not handle. Customers started coming back, drawn by curiosity about the talking dragon and impressed by the quality of the work. But Taeho noticed that Vex was getting worse physically. The creature moved more slowly each day. Some of his metal scales had fallen off, leaving bare patches that leaked blue fluid. The machines connected to his body beeped more urgently, and several warning lights had turned red. Are you sick? Taeho asked one evening as he closed the shop. I am dying, Vex said matter-of-factly slowly. But dying? What? Why didn't you tell me? Maybe I can help. Vex made that sound that might have been a laugh. You cannot help. You do not understand what I am. Then explain it to me. But Vex had already turned away, ending the conversation as he always did when things became too personal. Taeho stared at the creature's back, frustrated and worried. They had become something like partners over the past month. But Vex still, you've kept his secrets. Whatever was killing him, he was determined to face it alone. Tae-Ho decided he would not let that happen. Tomorrow he would find answers, whether Vex wanted to give them or not. The emergency happened on a Tuesday morning. Taeho was working on a broken unit when he heard a sound like metal falling. He turned to see Vex collapsed on the floor, his massive body shaking. Blue fluid leaked from the creature's mouth, and the spaces between his scales. The machines attached to his body were beeping frantically, their lights flashing red and yellow warnings. Vex Taeho dropped his tools and ran to the creature's side. What's happening? Vex tried to speak, but only made choking sounds. His multiple eyes rolled back, showing only white. Taeho had never felt so helpless. He knew how to fix machines, but Vex was something between a machine and a living being. The creature was dying right in front of him, and he had no idea what to do. Station medical emergency, Taeho shouted into his unit. I need a xenobiologist on level 47, Bay 12, right now. 20 minutes later, Dr. Han Sujin arrived with a team of medical assistants. She was a small woman with gray hair and quick hands. Taeho had heard of her but never met her. She was the station's expert on alien biology. Move back, she ordered as she approached Vex. Let me work. Dr. Han pulled out a scanner and ran it over Vex's body. The device beeped and clicked as it gathered information. Her assistants set up portable medical equipment around the collapsed creature. This is fascinating, Dr. Han said as she read the scanner results. And terrible, this creature is very sick. Can you help him? Taeho asked. Maybe, but first I need to understand what he is. These readings are unlike anything I have seen before. She worked for 2 hours, taking samples of Vex's blue blood and scanning every part of his body. Vex remained unconscious but seemed to be breathing more easily. Finally, Dr. Han sat back with a shocked expression on her face. Mr. Kim, she said slowly, do you know what you have here? A grumpy alien dragon that my uncle left me, Taeho said. His name is Vex. His name is not Vex, and he is not just any alien. Dr. Han showed him the scanner readings. These match records from the old archives. This creature is an Nexari. A what? Nexari. They are legendary. Mr. Kim, most people think they are myths. The Nexari were living starships that bonded with other species as partners. They were explorers, teachers, and bridges between different worlds. Taeho stared at Vex's unconscious form. You mean he's not an animal? He's intelligent. More than intelligent. The Nexari were among the most advanced beings in the galaxy. They lived for thousands of years and could interface with any technology, but they needed partners to be complete. They formed bonds with other species that were deeper than friendship or even family. Dr. Han pointed to the machines attached to Vex's body. These devices are suppression units. They have been blocking his natural abilities for decades. Someone turned this magnificent being into a slave. My uncle, Taeho said, feeling sick. He didn't know what Vex really was, perhaps not, but the damage is severe. Without proper bonding to a new partner, this Nexari will die within weeks. The suppression has weakened him too much. Bonding, what does that mean? Dr. Han explained while her assistants worked to stabilize Vex. Nexari choose their partners based on compatibility and trust. The bond is mental and emotional as well as physical. It allows both beings to share knowledge, abilities, and even thoughts. How do I help him? The bonding process is complex. It requires complete trust from both sides. The Nexari must be willing to open his mind completely, and the partner must be ready to accept him without fear or reservation. Taeho looked at Vex, whose breathing was now steady but still unconscious. He doesn't trust me. He barely tolerates me. Then you have a problem, Dr. Han said gently. Because trust cannot be forced, it must be earned. When Vex woke up the next day, he was furious to find the medical equipment around him. What did you do? He demanded, his voice weaker than usual. I saved your life, Taeho said. Dr. Han told me what you really are. You're a Nexari. Vex's eyes went dark with anger. She had no right to tell you that. Why didn't you tell me yourself all this time? I thought you were just an angry animal, but you're actually ... what? Noble, magnificent. Vex's voice was bitter. Look at me, human. I am nothing but a broken slave with machines stuck to my body. The Nexari you heard about in stories are gone. Dr. Han says we can bond. That it would save your life. No, Vex turned away. I will not bond again. Again, you had a partner before. For a long moment, Vex said nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice was so quiet that Taeho had to lean close to hear. Her name was Kira. She was an engineer, like you, but brilliant. We were bonded for 200 years. We explored distant galaxies, built cities, helped entire species learn to work with technology they had never seen before. What happened? To her, war came to our homeworld. Kira died defending our people while I was trapped, unable to help because of these cursed machines. Vex looked at the suppression devices attached to his body. I have been alone for 40 years since then. I will not risk that pain again. Teho felt his heart break for the creature. I'm not asking you to replace her, but you're dying, Vex. If we don't try the bonding, you'll be dead in 2 weeks. Perhaps that would be better. I don't believe that. If you really wanted to die, you wouldn't have helped me fix all those machines. You wouldn't have taught me about alien technology. Part of you still wants to live. Vex was quiet for a long time. Finally he said, even if I wanted to try, bonding requires trust. You are a good human, Kim Teho, but we barely know each other. How can I trust you with my mind and my life? Before Teho could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed red, and his comm unit crackled with panicked voices. All citizens report to emergency stations immediately. The station is under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. Through his shop's small window, Teho could see ships moving toward the station. They were not the usual trading vessels or passenger shuttles. These ships had weapons, and they were firing at the station's outer defenses. Pirates, Vex said grimly. And they are coming this way. Teho grabbed his tools and emergency supplies. We need to get to a safe area. There is no safe area. Human, not for us. Vex struggled to stand, his weakened body shaking with effort. Those ships are scanning for valuable cargo. If they find an XRE, even a broken one, they will kill everyone on this station to claim me. The sounds of battle grew closer. Teho realized they were about to face their first real test together. The pirates hit the station's power grid first. The lights in Teho's shop flickered and went out, leaving only the red glow of emergency lighting. In the distance he could hear the sound of hull breaches and the screaming of metal under stress. How long before they reached this level? Teho asked, checking his plasma cutter's charge. Not long, Vex replied. He was trying to stand, but his legs could barely support his weight. They will search every level for valuable salvage. Through his comm unit, Teho could hear the panicked voices of station security. The pirates had superior numbers and better weapons. The station's defenses were failing. We need to move, Teho said. There are emergency shelters on level 30. I cannot move fast enough, Vex said. And these chains, ... Teho had forgotten about the heavy chains that still bound Vex to the wall. He grabbed a plasma torch and began cutting through the metal links. The work was slow, and every second counted. Leave me, Vex said quietly. Take what you can carry and go to the shelters. Not happening, Teho said, continuing to cut. We're partners, remember. Partners don't abandon each other. We are not partners. We are a human and a dying alien who happen to be stuck together. The plasma torch finally cut through the last chain. Vex stumbled forward, free for the first time in months, but he was too weak to move quickly. Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. The pirates had reached level 47. In here, a rough voice called, check every shop. Teho grabbed his tools and helped support Vex's weight. They moved toward the back of the shop, where a maintenance hatch led to the service tunnels, but Vex collapsed before they could reach it. Go, Vex whispered. Save yourself. No, Teho said firmly. If they're going to take you, they'll have to go through me first. The shop door exploded inward. 3 pirates in combat armor stormed in, their weapon lights cutting through the darkness. Their leader was a tall human with scars across his face. Well, the leader said. Captain Cho Minsu at your service. And what do we have here? The pirates' lights found Vex lying on the floor. Captain Cho's eyes went wide with greed. An XRE, he breathed. Do you have any idea how much this creature is worth? He's not for sale, Teho said, stepping between the pirates and Vex. Captain Cho laughed. Everything is for sale, boy. The question is whether you sell willingly or we take it from your dead body. You would have to kill me first, Teho said, raising his plasma cutter. That can be arranged, one of the other pirates said, aiming his rifle, but Captain Cho held up a hand. Wait, I have a better idea. He looked at Teho with calculating eyes. You seem attached to this creature. What if I told you there was a way to save both of your lives? I'm listening, Teho said, though he did not lower his weapon. Join my crew. You're obviously a mechanic, and we can always use someone who can fix our ships. In return, I'll let you keep your pet. As a slave, you mean, as a valuable asset. The Nexari will work for us, using his abilities to help us find the best targets, and you'll keep him in line. Teho looked down at Vex, who was watching the conversation with pain and resignation in his eyes. The creature expected to be abandoned, just as he had been before. No deal, Teho said. Captain Cho's expression hardened. Then you both die. Kill them. The pirates raised their weapons, but before they could fire, the station shook violently. Another explosion, closer this time. Sparks flew from damaged electrical systems, and the ceiling began to crack. The support beams are failing, Vex said urgently. This section of the station is going to collapse. Captain Cho looked around. Nervously, we need to move. Grab the Nexari and let's go. I told you, he's not going anywhere, Teho said. And I told you that's not your choice to make. The standoff continued for several tense seconds. Then Vex spoke, his voice stronger than it had been in days. "Teho," he said, "I am ready to try." "Try what?" "The bonding, if we are going to die. Anyway, I would rather die as your partner than live as their slave." Teho felt his heart race. "Are you sure?" Dr. Han said, "It requires complete trust." "I trust you more than I trust them," Vex said, looking directly at the pirates. "You have shown me more kindness in 4 months than I received in 40 years. How touching," Captain Cho sneered. "But you're both out of time." He signaled to his men, who stepped forward with their weapons ready. But as they moved, Teho knelt beside Vex and placed his hand on the creature's metal scales. "I don't know how to do this," he said. "Just open your mind," Vex replied. "Think about trust, think about partnership, think about choosing to share your life with someone else." Teho closed his eyes and tried to clear his thoughts. He thought about the past 4 months, about how Vex had slowly changed from a hostile prisoner to a grumpy but helpful companion. He thought about the loneliness they had both felt, and how working together had made them both stronger. "That's enough," Captain Cho shouted. "Separate them." But as the pirate reached for Teho, something incredible happened. A warm sensation spread from Teho's hand into his entire body. He could suddenly feel Vex's thoughts, his memories, his pain and hope all mixed together. And Vex could feel his thoughts in return. The connection was overwhelming at first. Teho experienced flashes of Vex's long life, his partnership with Kira, the joy of exploring unknown worlds, and the terrible grief of losing everything. At the same time, Vex felt Teho's simple but deep desire to help others, his loneliness, and his determination to protect those he cared about. "Stop them, Captain," Cho screamed, but his voice seemed to come from very far away. The bonding was not complete, but it was enough. Power flowed between them, and Vex's body began to change. The suppression devices attached to his scales sparked and fell away, their hold on him finally broken. For the first time in 40 years, Vex was free to be what he truly was, and what he was magnificent. The transformation was like watching a star being born. Vex's body began to glow with soft blue light. His metal scales shifted and rearranged themselves, revealing the living tissue beneath. The broken parts of his body healed rapidly, and his multiple eyes blazed with power instead of pain. But the most incredible change was in Teho's mind. Through their new bond, he could suddenly understand technology in ways he had never imagined. Every machine in his shop, every system on the station, every device the pirates carried, all of it made perfect sense to him now. "Impossible, Captain," Cho breathed, stepping backward. Vex rose to his full height, no longer the sick and broken creature he had been moments before. He was still ugly by human standards, but now he radiated strength and intelligence. His voice, when he spoke, was deeper and more resonant. "You made a mistake coming here," Vex said to the pirates. "Kill them both," Captain Cho shouted, but his men hesitated. They had come to steal a helpless creature, not to fight something that looked like it could tear their ship apart. Through their bond, Teho felt Vex's consciousness reaching out to touch the station's computer systems. The Nexari could interface with any technology, and now that he was bonded with a partner, his abilities were fully restored. "The station's defense grid is still partially functional," Vex said, his voice calm despite the chaos around them. "But it needs someone to operate it manually." "I can do that," Teho said, understanding immediately what Vex meant. Through their bond, he could see the station's systems as clearly as if he had built them himself. Captain Cho must have sensed the danger because he suddenly lunged forward with a plasma knife. "If I can't have the Nexari, no one can." But Vex moved faster than seemed possible for such a large creature. One of his clawed hands caught the pirate captain's wrist and held it isolely with his other hand. Vex reached out and touched the wall of the shop. Immediately, the lights came back on, not just in the shop but throughout the entire section of the station. Through the bond, Teho felt Vex's consciousness spreading through the electrical systems like water flowing through pipes. "You are interfacing with the station's power grid," Teho said in amazement. "We are interfacing with it," Vex corrected. "I provide the connection, but your human creativity guides how we use it." Working together through their mental link, they restored power to the station's defensive systems. Weapon batteries that had been offline for hours suddenly came back to life. Shield generators hummed with renewed energy. The pirates in the shop looked around nervously as they realized their situation had changed completely. "The other pirate ships," Teho said. "Can we stop them?" "Better than that," Vex replied. "We can take control of them." Through the station's communication array, Vex reached out to the pirate ships attacking the outer hull. His consciousness touched their computer systems, and suddenly Teho could see through their sensors, access their navigation, even monitor their internal communications. "Their ships are older models," Teho observed through the bond. "The security protocols are basic." "Child's play," Vex agreed. Working together, they began taking control of the pirate fleet. Ship after ship found their weapons turning offline, their engines shutting down, their life support systems switching to emergency power. Within minutes, the entire attack force was helpless. Captain Cho and his men watched in horror as their own units crackled with panicked voices from their fleet. Captain, we've lost control of the ship. Our weapons won't fire. Something is controlling our navigation. What are you? Captain Cho demanded, staring at Vex and Taeho. We are partners, Taeho said simply. Station security arrived 20 minutes later to find the pirates sitting quietly on the floor, their weapons removed and their hands bound with power cables. Captain Cho kept staring at Vex as if he could not believe what he had seen. How did you disable an entire pirate fleet? Security Chief Officer Nam asked. Teamwork, Taeho replied. After the security team took the pirates away, Taeho and Vex sat in the restored light of the shop. The bond between them was still new and strange, but it felt right in a way that nothing else in Taeho's life ever had. I can feel your thoughts, Taeho said wonderingly. Not all of them, but the ones you choose to share. And I can feel yours, Vex replied. Your mind is different from Kira's. She was brilliant with complex theories, but you think in practical ways. You see solutions where others see only problems. Is that good or bad? It is perfect for what we need to do. What do we need to do? Vex was quiet for a moment, and Taeho could feel him thinking through their bond. When he spoke, his voice was filled with something that might have been hope. There are others, Vex said. Other Nexari scattered across the galaxy. Most are alone, as I was. Some are enslaved. Some are dying. Through our bond, I can sense them now. We could help them find partners. More than that, we could help them remember what they were meant to be. The Nexari were never meant to be alone. We were designed to work with other species, to build bridges between different worlds and different ways of thinking. Taeho felt excitement growing in his chest. You mean we could help create more partnerships like ours? Exactly, and not just with humans, though. Humans seem particularly good at the bonding process. Your species has a gift for adaptation and the emotional connection that makes you ideal partners for many alien races. Through their bond, Taeho could see glimpses of what Vex was imagining. Ships crewed by bonded partnerships between different species. Space stations where humans and aliens worked together as naturally as breathing. Entire worlds where cooperation replaced suspicion. It sounds incredible, Taeho said, but also like a lot of work. The best work always is, Vex replied. Are you interested? Taeho looked around his small repair shop. It had been his whole world for years, but now it felt tiny compared to the possibilities that were opening up before them. I'm interested, he said, but I have one condition. What? We do this as equal partners. No more of you calling me stupid or slow. Vex made that sound that might have been laughter. I will try to remember that you are only human, and I'll try to remember that you're several thousand years old and know things I don't. It is a deal, Vex said solemnly. As they shook hands, Taeho felt their bond strengthen and deepen. They were no longer a struggling mechanic and a dying alien. They were something new, something that had never existed before. They were partners in the truest sense, ready to change the galaxy. 1 year later, Taeho stood on the observation deck of their ship, the Harmony, and watched the stars stream past in hyperspace. It was hard to believe how much his life had changed since that day when he first inherited a grumpy alien dragon. Are you nervous? Vex asked through their bond. Even after a year of partnership, it still amazed Taeho how they could communicate without speaking. A little, Taeho admitted. This is our biggest mission yet. They were approaching the Kepler research station, where Dr. Lee Hiram had made an incredible discovery. The xenarchaeologist had been studying ancient ruins on a distant planet when she found something that changed everything they thought they knew about the Nexari contact. Coming in, Vex announced. His consciousness was linked with the ship's communication system, so he always knew when messages arrived before Taeho did. Dr. Lee's face appeared on the main screen. She looked excited but tired, as if she had been working without sleep for days. Taeho. Vex, she said. Thank goodness you're here. You need to see what we found. An hour later, they were standing in Dr. Lee's laboratory, looking at artifacts that were older than human civilization. The ruins she had discovered contained detailed records of the ancient Nexari civilization, written in symbols that only a bonded Nexari could read. Tell them what you learned, Dr. Lee said to Vex. Vex's multiple eyes glowed as he studied the ancient writings. Through their bond, Taeho could feel his partner's excitement and wonder. These are not just historical records, Vex said. They are instructions. The Nexari were not just living ships or partners to other species. We were part of something much larger. What do you mean? Taeho asked. We were designed to be bridges, Vex explained. Not just between different technologies, but between different ways of thinking, different cultures, different species entirely. The ancient Nexari helped create a galactic community where thousands of species worked together. Dr. Lee nodded enthusiastically. The records show that this community lasted for millions of years. Species that should have been enemies became friends. Wars ended. Knowledge was shared freely across the galaxy. What happened to it? Taeho asked. The Great Silence, Vex said sadly. A plague that affected only the Within a few centuries, most of us were dead. Without the bridges we provided, the galactic community fell apart. Species went back to fighting each other or hiding on their home worlds. Taeho felt a chill, but some Nexari survived. A few hundreds scattered across the galaxy. Most of us forgot what we were supposed to be. We became isolated, bitter, lost. Vex looked at Taeho with something like gratitude. Until we found new partners. Dr. Lee pulled up a holographic map of the galaxy. Dozens of points glowed with soft light. These are the locations of other Nexari that we have identified so far, she said. Some are bonded with partners, like you two. Others are still alone. How many partnerships have been formed? Taeho asked. 43 confirmed, Dr. Lee replied. And the number is growing every month. Word is spreading that the Nexari are not myths or monsters, but potential partners. Through their bond, Taeho could feel Vex's deep satisfaction. Over the past year, they had traveled to dozens of worlds, helping lonely Nexari find compatible partners. Each successful bonding created a team that could help others, spreading the knowledge and the hope. But here is the truly incredible part, Dr. Lee continued. According to these records, humans were always meant to be part of this community. What do you mean? Taeho asked. Vex answered before Dr. Lee could speak. The ancient records mention a species called the Connectors. They were described as beings with great emotional depth, natural adaptability, and an unusual ability to understand and work with other species. That sounds like humans, Taeho said. It is humans, Vex confirmed. The descriptions match perfectly. The ancient Nexari were waiting for your species to develop enough to join the galactic community. But the plague came first, and we lost contact with your world. Dr. Lee smiled. Think about it, Taeho. Humans have only been in space for a few centuries, but look how quickly you have learned to work with alien species. Look how naturally you bonded with Vex. Your species has exactly the traits the records describe. Taeho felt overwhelmed by the implications. You're saying humans were meant to be bridge builders. More than that, Vex said through their bond. Humans were meant to be the heart of the new galactic community. Your emotional intelligence, your creativity, or ability to see solutions where others see only problems. These are exactly what the galaxy needs. Over the following months, their mission expanded far beyond just helping Nexari find partners. They began working with species that had been enemies for generations, showing them how cooperation could benefit everyone. They helped establish trade agreements between worlds that had never spoken to each other. They created communication, TWORKS, that allowed different species to share knowledge and resources. The incredible thing was how naturally humans seemed to fit into this role. Wherever Taeho and Vex went, they found other humans who had somehow formed friendships or partnerships with aliens. A human engineer named Park Ji-woo had bonded with a crystalline being that could process mathematical calculations at incredible speeds. A human diplomat named Kim Soyoung had formed a partnership with a hive mind species, helping them communicate with individual-minded races. Each partnership was unique, but they all shared the same basic elements: trust, mutual respect, and the willingness to see beyond surface differences to find common ground. We are not trying to recreate the ancient community exactly as it was, Vex explained to a gathering of bonded pairs on the space station they now called New Harmony. We are creating something new, something better. How can it be better? Asked a Kaelin engineer who had partnered with a human mathematician. Because this time, we have humans, Vex replied simply. The ancient community was built on logic and shared knowledge. This new community is built on emotion and shared understanding. It is stronger. Taeho looked around the room at the dozens of partnerships that had formed over the past year. Humans and aliens working together, not as superior and inferior beings but as equals who brought different strengths to their relationships. The incredible thing that happened, Taeho said to the gathering, was not just that I bonded with Vex. It was that we discovered we were never meant to be alone. None of us were humans, Nexari, Kellans, crystallins, all species were meant to work together, Vex added. We just forgot how for a while. Dr. Lee, who had joined their mission permanently, stood up to address the group. We have identified over 200 species that could benefit from partnership bonding. Some are already reaching out to us, asking for help in finding compatible partners, and some are afraid, added Park Ji-woo. They have been alone for so long that they have forgotten how to trust. Then we show them, Taeho said. We show them that partnership is not about losing independence. It is about becoming stronger together than either of us could be alone. As the meeting continued, Taeho felt Vex's contentment through their bond. The grumpy, dying alien he had inherited a year ago was now part of something wonderful, a growing network of partnerships that was slowly healing the divisions that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. Are you happy? Taeho asked through their private mental connection. I am complete, Vex replied. For the first time since Kira died, I feel like I am doing what I was meant to do, even though I am not as brilliant as she was. You are brilliant, in your own way. Kira understood complex theories, but you understand people. That is exactly what this new community needs. Later that evening, as they prepared for another mission to help a lonely Nexari find a partner, Taeho reflected on how much his life had changed. He had gone from being a failing mechanic to being part of the most important project in the galaxy. But the most incredible thing was not the success or the recognition. It was the realization that he had never been alone, even before he met Vex. Somewhere in the galaxy, There had always been beings waiting to connect, to understand, to work together toward something better. Ready for the next mission? Vex asked as their ship prepared to jump to hyperspace. Always, Tejo replied. We have a galaxy to reunite. As the stars streamed past their ship, carrying them toward their next partnership waiting to be born, Tejo knew that the incredible thing was just beginning. The universe was vast and full of different species, but it no longer seemed lonely, it seemed full of possibilities. The poor human mechanic and the grumpy alien dragon had become something neither of them could have imagined. The first partnership in a new galactic community built on the simple but powerful idea that everyone is stronger when they are not alone. And that, truly, was something incredible.